James Whittaker had always prided himself on being strong, independent, and resilient. Born and raised in Boston, he'd worked as a shipyard engineer for nearly 40 years before retiring at 65. His work had been physically demanding, and back in those days, he'd often joked that the heavy lifting and long hours kept him in better shape than any gym could. But as time passed, and the daily grind gave way to long mornings reading the newspaper and slow afternoons in front of the TV, James noticed something unsettling. He was slowing down. By 68, James began to feel a constant heaviness in his chest whenever he climbed the stairs to his apartment. He chalked it up to getting older, telling himself that aches, pains, and fatigue were simply part of the deal. He had lost his wife, Martha, 5 years earlier, and life had been quieter since. Martha had been the heart of their home. Her laughter could fill a room, and her cooking had been legendary in their neighborhood. Her Sunday roasts, thick beef stews, and grilled steaks were meals James had lived for. After she passed, he kept cooking those same dishes, partly because they tasted good, but mostly because they brought her back to him, even if only for a moment. His daughter, Emily, was 39 and lived just a few blocks away with her husband, Mark, and their 7-year-old son, Ethan. She checked on James often, bringing him homemade soups or salads in an attempt to sneak more vegetables into his diet. James would eat them politely, but deep down he always looked forward to his Friday night ribeye, marinated, grilled to perfection, and served with mashed potatoes dripping in butter. One crisp October morning, James woke up earlier than usual. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the skyline with streaks of orange and pink. He decided to take a walk before breakfast. The air was cold and fresh, and for the first few blocks he felt fine. But as he reached the park and climbed the small hill near the benches, his legs felt heavy, and he had to stop to catch his breath. It was more than just being winded. His heart felt like it was working overtime. When Emily stopped by later that day, she immediately noticed his paler-than-usual face. "Dad, you don't look great. Are you feeling okay?" she asked, concern etched across her brow. "I'm fine, Em. Just a little tired," James replied, waving her off. "Dad, you've been saying that for months. Please, just humor me and get a checkup. If nothing's wrong, great, but at least we'll know." James sighed. All right. I'll make an appointment." 2 days later, James walked into Bayview Medical Center. The waiting area was filled with soft murmurs and the smell of disinfectant mixed with fresh coffee from the small kiosk down the hall. Dr. Amanda Russell, a warm and approachable physician in her early 40s, greeted him with a smile. She had known Emily since college and had always liked James. "How have you been, James?" she asked as he settled into the chair across from her desk. "Still kicking," James replied with a chuckle, though his voice lacked its usual energy. Amanda reviewed his medical history and recent blood work. "James, your cholesterol is a bit high, and your blood pressure's creeping up. Nothing alarming yet, but here's the thing, you've got a lot of good years ahead of you, and I want to make sure they're healthy years. There's one habit I think you should cut back on. It's not sugar, not salt, it's red meat. Especially the processed stuff and fatty cuts." James raised his eyebrows. "Red meat? You're telling me my Friday steak night is the villain here?" Amanda smiled. "I'm not saying you should never eat steak again. But as we age, our bodies process saturated fats differently. Those fats can speed up plaque buildup in your arteries, increasing your risk for heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers. Cutting back, just a little, can make a huge difference." The words stuck with James as he walked home. He thought about Martha's roast beef, about the comfort it brought him, and about the empty chair across from him at the dinner table. But he also thought about Ethan, about wanting to be there for his grandson's high school graduation, maybe even his wedding someday. That weekend, Emily invited him over for dinner. She served baked salmon with roasted vegetables and quinoa. "I know you're probably missing your steak," she said, "but just try it." James took a bite. To his surprise, it was delicious, flavorful and filling, without the heaviness he usually felt after eating red meat. Over the next few weeks, he made small changes. He swapped his usual bacon and eggs for oatmeal, with berries a few mornings a week. He tried turkey chili instead of beef. Friday steak night stayed, but the portion was smaller and the plate was loaded with greens. At first, he missed the rich, familiar taste of beef. But after a month, something shifted. He noticed he could walk to the park without stopping. His afternoon naps became shorter, and his energy started returning. Even his mood improved. He found himself calling old friends and saying yes to more social events at the senior center. One day, at his 3-month follow-up, Amanda flipped through his new lab results and grinned. "James, your cholesterol's down, your blood pressure's back in the normal range, and you've lost 12 pounds. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." James walked out of the clinic with a spring in his step. That spring turned into a summer of change. He signed up for a local cooking class, learning to make black bean burgers, grilled vegetable skewers, and lemon dill salmon. He discovered that healthy food could still be flavorful and satisfying. And on the rare Friday when he did have a steak, he savored every bite instead of eating out of habit. By the end of the year, James felt 10 years younger. His friends noticed, too. "James, you've got a glow about you these days," his buddy Marvin said during their weekly poker game. James just smiled and replied, "Guess I learned to put the steak knife down once in a while." He knew he couldn't stop the clock from ticking, but he had found a way to make those ticks count. Cutting back on red meat hadn't just improved his numbers on a chart, it had given him more life in his years. And for James, that was worth far more than a plate piled high with roast beef.